The Toronto Blue Jays are in the basement. We know that about them. But Will Wagner came up and he had a debut that was very memorable. He went 3 for 4. He could have went 4 for 4, and his bat to ball skills that we were talking about in previous days, they really shined yesterday. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And Will Wagner was a name that was very interesting in the Yusei Kikuchi trade. He was not the headliner by any stretch, but he was acknowledged as a guy who can definitely be a player in the big leagues. Like his bat to ball skills, very good, but the other areas of his game kind of left a little bit to be desired. Not blazing speed. He doesn't have great defense. We don't really know where he's going to fit defensively in the majors, but he looked good defensively and he looked really good offensively last night, Nick. It was a fantastic display. He was chasing Blue Jays history. He's one of the only Blue Jays to have 3 hits in their major league debut. So it was great to watch yesterday. It added a little bit of excitement to to a game between two last place teams, or the A's or the Angels
Angels,
are
yeah.
not too far away from last place, but they're close. They're close. They're right there. So it was a battle of the basement, but Will Wagner made it exciting.
Yeah, we had a video on it yesterday, and you said it, and we both kind of predicted that he could have a big impact, and he did. And also, shout out to Buck Martinez. He's keeping the games entertaining. Back at the play-by-play. I'm loving the home run calls, and we're gonna do a bunch of stuff. But let's just start with this. So, Will Wagner, if you watched the game yesterday, and again, you mentioned it, two bottom dwellers late at night, at least for me especially, but even late on the East Coast as well. Or Toronto as well. But Will Wagner had his MLB debut in 3 for 4 with 2 singles, a double, and collected an RBI. And Peter, he looked so comfortable. We were obviously talking about it while the game was going on. He also almost hit a home run, very, very close, 384
Yeah.
feet or something like that. But he is hitting absolute rockets. Now, again, I'm not going to overreact, even though it is the time to overreact. What else do we have to be happy about regarding Blue Jays baseball right now? But he looks really good, and the biggest question mark for him is where he can stick defensively. He even looked good at second base. His bat to ball skills look great. The first pitch he saw in the major leagues, he ripped for a single, and then now he looks great. I'm just leave it there. He looks phenomenal. I'm super
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah, and I brought up the comparison to Spencer Horwitz, and you could see a lot of those similarities as well. Just the bat to ball skills, he looks very comfortable in the box, and he has every advantage being an older prospect in terms of not being phased at the big league level. And he showed that yesterday. Like, this is a guy who is 25 years old. He's had a lot of seasoning in the minor leagues, and he was expected to be a contributor at some point for the Houston Astros before they shipped him off to the Blue Jays. Now, is he going to be a full-time player? I still don't know. We've only seen him for 4 at-bats, but it was very nice to see. And yeah, that first pitch that he saw laced it into the right center field gap for a double. I
Double,
mean, it
yeah.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, for a double and then a single in his next at-bat. And the plate discipline looked good as well, even though he did chase a pitch or two, but just solid, overall solid performance from him. And we're not going to expect him to go 3 for 4 every game, but you could tell that he puts the ball in play. And even though the power is a concern, he's not a guy with home run power per se. Still hit the ball 105 miles an hour 2 times, and then in the high 90s a couple of times. So he showed some pretty good exit velocities despite being a guy who doesn't have much power. So the bat to ball skills, they're going to play at any level. Like if you can make contact and you're able to put the ball in play, you're going to have more success than a guy who strikes out a lot at the minor league level. So he has that working for him, and it was just great to see Will Wagner do great in his debut. Hopefully, he can continue this hot streak for the rest of the season, and he can be a mainstay in the Blue Jays lineup for next year. I never liked the comparison to Kevin Biggio because I've never seen Biggio hit a ball harder than 80 miles an hour off his bat. So this is already a good start for Will Wagner, and I'm liking the comp between him and Spencer Horwitz. I can get used to another Horwitz on the team, a guy who just hits the ball and makes the right plays there in the batter's box.
Yeah, and the big question mark now will be whether Will Wagner is going to be. He has the bat to ball skills to be a hitter or the bench player for the Toronto Blue Jays. The question is he going to be able to stick every day at whether that's second base, whether that's wherever he wants to, the Jays want to throw him. Maybe they try him at third base. Who knows at this point? They seem to try everybody out there. But Will Wagner spoke about his pregame ritual. Obviously, his dad, very, very good former MLB pitcher. But my fiance, my dad, Bill Wagner, of course, hey, we still can't get in. He forgot to get his relatives tickets, which was hilarious, and then he goes out and he looks completely unfazed. And the biggest thing for him, if you looked at him on the field after he made that play you referred to in the intro, it was like a weird hop crazy play, sliding, diving, whatever you want to call it. He looked like he was very confident out there after that, and he wanted to get the next ball. He made another pretty solid play, short hop Spencer Horwitz later on in the game. I just loved every bit of it, and it's at a point now where I want to see the young guys play, and that's why they're playing guys like Will Wagner. That's why they're playing a lot of the young guys, Leo Jimenez, who had his first home run.
Yeah.
Like, the reason is because they want to give them a chance to play themselves into a role next year, and Will Wagner was the throw-in of the deal. Lo Perfito has had a very rough start to his Blue Jays career, so it's good to see Will Wagner, at least one of the players, get it going, but I don't know. I'm liking it so far. It's fun, even though this is let's be very clear here. This is not where the Jays envision themselves being in August. But we'll take what we can get now, and I think that Will Wagner is going to be a pretty solid, maybe not a regular, but a very solid major leaguer going forward.
Yeah, we hope so. And I think we could both agree that Lil Perfito probably has a much higher ceiling than Will Wagner in terms of his power and his overall tools. But Will Wagner looks like he's major league ready. And that's the benefit of being the son of a Hall of Famer in Bill Wagner. Like his dad was one of the best closers of all time, right next to Mariano Rivera. And he's a Hall of Famer. He's a guy who was in high pressure situations. Will Wagner grew up in major league clubhouses, so he's not new to this. Like he knows what it's like in the front lines there, and you could tell that he was unfazed yesterday in his big league debut, or if he was, he just didn't show it. He looks very composed for a guy making his big league debut, but very nice to see again. And I don't know if he's going to be a full-time player, but still, like if you can get a guy on your bench that is producing the way that he produced last night, someone that you can bring in as a pinch hitter, then maybe some of those concerns of him being an everyday player kind of dissipate. And I loved what I saw out of him. That's just it. Hopefully we could see Jake Bloss by the end of the year, maybe make a start. And I liked what Arden Swelling said at the end of the game yesterday. If you watched a bit of the post-game press conference, I mean, he said, don't get me wrong, this is a failure of a season by the Blue Jays. Like, this is not where they wanted to be in August, and they shouldn't be playing 5, 6 rookies in a given game. Like, this is not what the team pictured themselves doing in August, but they made the best of the situation. They got some prospects back in return for some expiring deals. And now they're allowing themselves to see what they have in these young players, and that'll make some decisions a lot easier for next year. Is this a contending team with all these rookies? No. Are they going to have to make some major changes if they want to contend? Yes, but you can still have Will Wagner, Joey Loperfido, and Spencer Horwitz as guys who you can rely on next year in more backseat roles as opposed to being feature guys on this roster. And I'm sure that the Blue Jays would welcome that.
Yeah, like none of these guys. Maybe Horwitz might be able to get an everyday role next year if he continues to hit the way he has. But like you mentioned, it's all auditioning right now. And you mentioned pitching, obviously, Bill Wagner. Not to put them in the same sentence necessarily at all, but Bowden Francis, a pitcher of the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, had a very, very good game. Just want to give him some quick credit there, Peter. Anything you see from him, his fastball was working. I am glad they pulled him when they did. I know there was some Buck Martinez and Caleb Joseph on the broadcast was a bit confused as well, but his stuff, like Arden Zwelling said after the game, you mentioned it again, his stuff tends to tail off towards the second half of his starts. Now, whether that's in the 4th, 5th inning as his pitch count goes up, he had a great start, 7 innings, very good. Granted, the Angels' offense is not very good, but very encouraging. And at this point, if he can be a starter, a 5th starter, if that's his ceiling going forward and that he can reach that, I'm happy with that if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, even though I'm still not fully convinced that on a competitive team he can be that guy. But even if he goes into a Ross Stripling first year of Blue Jays bullpen guy, he could work.
And that's ultimately what I see him as. It's that long relief guy, a guy who can bail you out of a lot of tough situations. Let's say you're in the first game of your series and your starter doesn't last very long, that's when Bowden Francis comes in and puts in some good work for you and keeps you in the ball game. I think that's ultimately going to be his role going forward. But this was huge for his confidence. Like he had struggled, been in and out of the lineup, been up and down from AAA to the big league ball club. So he's back now. He looked very good yesterday. Only 81 pitches, so not an extended outing for him by any stretch, but he got through 7 innings and he gave the Blue Jays the lead, a 4-1 lead heading into the ninth inning with Chad Green coming in, who's been one of the more reliable arms on this team all year. So um, I'm excited to see what he can do going forward. I don't see him as a starting pitcher, but if he can become a Ross Stripling type of pitcher for the Blue Jays, I think all fans are going to sign up for that, as well as myself. Like that's best case scenario for Bowden Francis. I like his stuff, but it's not electric enough to be going through the order 3 times in a game. So I like what I saw out of him yesterday. It's a building block for him to get his confidence back because it was shattered a little bit in the early portion of the season, and hopefully he can make the most of these opportunities that he's going to have for the rest of the season. That's all it's about, right? These young guys, these guys that don't have much of a track record at the big league level to try and get themselves a spot for next year. I don't think it's going to be a full-time spot, but you're playing for big money here. If you can keep yourself in the big leagues, you're going to earn a pretty good paycheck every 2 weeks. So I think that's the ultimate goal here. Try to prove yourself to the organization and show that you can be a part of the solution. And I think Bowden Francis can be that.
Yeah, we saw him be very good with the Jays last year in the long relief role, so maybe he can do that next season. And hopefully they put Will Wagner back in there tonight against the Angels. But that'll wrap it up. And again, quick shout out to Leo Jimenez. He also one of the young guys. He hit his first major league home run, and an absolute rocket at that. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know your thoughts on this, and we'll see you soon.